Okay. Oh, there. See, I got more people. We got about 35 people on property now.
Bosco, go in my room. Go wash up.
Some of you still have your mute. Can you mute yourselves, please? We can hear you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I got 9:04. Thank you for your patience as I continue to let people in this office. We have a great show today of about 32 of us, including the commissioner. So thank you, folks, for being here. I know we have a good meeting today. We'll have a good meeting today about some of the things that are happening across our system. And just hope that everybody's staying safe, everybody's fine, and your families are doing well during this particular heightened situation of the pandemic here in Hawaii. We have a lot of concerns within the prison system as well as in our communities as well. We'll be discussing some of that today, and really appreciate you folks being here and being part of this discussion to help us see where we can go into a positive direction. I'd like to begin, and if possible, let's try and keep our testimonies within a 3-minute limit. But I'd like to begin the agenda at this time on the public testimony on our agendas. So I think the best way to do this, if I see a wave of hand, for those of you who got your video on, I'll just call upon you and then we'll begin. Yeah. So be right with you, Eric. Forgive me. Want to say hi to my fellow commissioners. I see Mike, Judge Town, Judge Ibarra, Mr. Sakai, and Martha Torneys are present, as well as Lisa at this time. And I know Lisa will have to leave for a hearing, but we got everything going. The recording is going. So let's go ahead and move forward. Eric, you want to go ahead and begin this morning's agenda item 1 on the agenda items?
Thank you. I was asked by Judge Town to brief you a little bit on the litigation that we are involved in. And I don't have a lot of time, but I'll do it as concisely as I can. As you know, we filed a lawsuit in federal court seeking an injunction to require the Department of Public Safety to provide a safe and secure environment for inmates who are exposed to and suffering from COVID. In that lawsuit, we went through a whole litany of problems that have been reported to us having to do with awful living conditions in terms of sanitation, in terms of medical care, in terms of quarantining, in terms of making vaccinations available, in terms of testing. I mean, it's just absolutely horrible the way that it was described to us, not only by inmates, but by staff. We filed a motion for preliminary injunction. The judge conducted an extensive hearing, and then in early June issued, or I guess late June, issued a 69-page opinion, basically just blasting the department. It's one of the one of the angriest decisions I've ever seen in 50 years of practicing law from a federal judge about the conditions that have been allowed to exist, and directing the prison system to do a number of things immediately, and placing the immediate enforcement of the injunction into the hands of a magistrate. We subsequently have met with the magistrate. We submitted initial status reports. The first status report that came in from the state contained declarations that they were required to submit by each of the wardens. The wardens just basically said in their declarations, everything's fine, no problems, we're doing everything. And then within a week of that, the facilities blew up and we began to have 30 or 40 cases a day in Maui, Kauai of all places. We have all the problems that have been well reported and documented at the Hawaii Community Correctional Facility, additional cases at OCC, and of course, Halava is locked down. So, I mean, the place just blew up after the wardens told the court that everything was fine. The state then went ahead and had the gall to file 2 motions to reconsider the preliminary injunction. Judge Otaki, without a hearing, denied the first one. And then yesterday, and again, a very angry order, denied the second motion. For some reason, the department doesn't seem to get an understanding of what's going on here, but they're in deep trouble with this federal court judge. And I don't think the department understands that. They've submitted an appeal to the Ninth Circuit. In the meantime, however, we are meeting with the Attorney General, Claire Connor, and her staff. We've been having some discussions, the latest of which was a day or 2 ago. And today we are meeting again with the magistrate in an effort to try to settle this particular litigation before it goes on further. And the settlement that's being proposed is along the lines of a settlement that occurred in Connecticut in a similar lawsuit, where a special body of people, of experts, is going to be appointed under the supervision of the court to go in and direct and verify compliance with the court's preliminary injunction, essentially, and to ensure that inmates are safe and are getting the kind of medical care and follow-up, and that the conditions can be created to quarantine and separate people and evaluate them in a timely fashion. No more use of dog cages and places like that. No more use of the fishbowl in Hilo, which has been a terrible breeding ground. And each side is going to appoint 2 people to this special body, and then the 4 people together will appoint a 5th. And they will have stringent reporting requirements. They will be given money and resources to do what's necessary to get the job done, and they will report back on a regular basis. One of the people we've been working with is the former director of medical services at Rikers Island, who is right now serving as a master in 2 similar cases. And he's been advising us on the Connecticut process. He was involved in that one as well, and what shortfalls and difficulties they've had there, especially with it being dragged out to some degree. And so we're trying to draft a document today, and we are all meeting tomorrow with the magistrate to try to come up with a settlement so that we can get something in place to provide the kind of monitoring and gather adequate and accurate information to ensure that inmates are safe. That's our primary focus. I think the Attorney General, if not the department, certainly understands the problems that they are in and what's going to happen if they don't immediately take steps to do what the court has ordered them to do. And so that's where we are. I have suggested at various times that the Oversight Commission be involved in the enforcement of this court order. Apparently, for whatever reasons, the department is unwilling to agree to that. But what we will do is ensure that all of the information that we get as a consequence of this monitoring process, if and when we are able to settle with the state to establish that, we will make sure that the Oversight Commission is a recipient of all of it and has the opportunity to engage in the process of assuring that inmates are being treated fairly and safely and are well. There are a number of other problems that are still on the table that we haven't resolved. One problem is that the current lawsuit does not include or encompass the inmates in Saguaro. We're going to have to figure that out because there's a lot of coming and going to Saguaro, which certainly implicates the spread of the disease and some of the difficulties we've raised. There is a problem. I want the state to develop an expedited claims process, a simple claims process, so inmates who got the disease can file claims for damages, because I think those claims are viable. I don't want everybody to have to go out and get a lawyer and then go through what I think is a very tortuous and expensive process to replicate what we have already done. So we're trying to get the state to agree to that. They haven't thus far. Basically, that's what's happening. We will be back at 1 o'clock with the magistrate today. And as I said, all day tomorrow. And my hope is that we can hammer out an agreement, because at least one thing is true, and that is that the court and the Attorney General and we all agree on the urgency of the situation. And notwithstanding the fact that tomorrow is a holiday, we're going to try and do our best to get this done. So I will answer any questions anybody has. I've got to go back to working on this agreement in preparation for this meeting, but I certainly can take time to answer any questions that the commissioners may have or that anyone else wants to address.
We're gonna just go ahead and have others be able to provide testimonies as well. Eric, that was very informative and we really appreciate the time. If I have any question I'd like to ask right now is there a way that the commission can see some of those responses?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, you know, the documents, the declarations and things that have been filed, they're a matter of public record. They've been filed in the court. They're all open. You know, anybody who wants them can get them through the court record or can get them from us. We're just extraordinarily busy. I can't begin to tell you, we've put in close to 900 hours of time on this case already in the past 3 or 4 months. So, you know, it's been a horrible where we get calls and letters and emails from family and inmates and staff enormously. So if you can get them from the court, that would be best. But if you cannot, contact my staff and we'll be happy to provide you with any of the documents in the case. They are huge.
Okay.
You know, our status report, I think, contained 40 declarations.
Okay. Go
Eric,
ahead, Martha. Oh, Ted, sorry.
go ahead, Martha.
No, I have nothing to say. I just want to say Eric has to leave, so.
Yeah, I had one quick question, Eric.
Sure.
Is the litigation focused on the situation with COVID or is it more generalized?
No, it's just regarding COVID.
Just regarding
And
COVID, okay.
basically, the class that is provisionally certified is the class of all inmates in the institutions in Hawaii who have been exposed to or could be exposed to COVID.
So it pertains to any of the facilities in Hawaii?
Yes,
And you're trying to, you're looking to see if you can include Saguaro.
yes.
Is that correct? Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time today and your
All
work.
right, let me know if anybody has questions. I'll be
Yes.
happy to try to respond.
Well,
Thanks a lot.
Mike has his hand up.
Yep. Eric, this is, I guess it's a loaded question, but do you have a sense that somebody else, we got background.
Somebody has to mute.
Do you have a sense? Do you have a sense, Eric, that the Attorney General and Public Safety, and I hope the federal judge understand that our inmates and the staff are not widgets, it's a fiduciary duty that has to be taken seriously. It's just a matter of, it's not like widgets and Amazon, it's a fiduciary duty, and I don't get that sense, except from you.
Well, clearly, if you read Judge Otaki's orders, and there are 3 of them now, unquestionably, she gets that sense. She is very disturbed and very worried. And I have absolute confidence that she's on the ball. She's been very careful and very thorough. I think Claire Connors and her staff are obviously, from their willingness to talk to us and settle with us, are very concerned. And I don't have any doubt about the legitimacy of their concerns whatsoever. The stuff we get directly back or indirectly back from the Department of Public Safety is very disturbing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And I think that they haven't gotten the message. And if they don't get the message by just simply reading the judge's orders, they're going to be in deep trouble.
Okay, and some of our commissioners are writing me by chat. They want to get a copy of the findings. I mean, I can try to provide it, but if we could have Lisa put them on our website or something, I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Will do. Once again, Eric, thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to leave. Thank you.
Any other hands?
Hello,
Angie?
yes,
Go ahead, Angie.
hi. I'm a former Waikoloa resident and I'm here as a very aggravated and concerned parent. My son is incarcerated at Waiava Correctional Facility. He has been on community status since March And he contracted COVID there when they had that first outbreak that is now in litigation for a class action lawsuit. I have written Tommy Johnson many times and get the canned response that they're doing everything they're supposed to do, following protocol, blah, 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 which I know they are not. My son has told me horrible conditions over there. I have proposed that the department consider these inmates who are community status and they have no way to be quarantined and kept safe, that they be released with ankle tracking so that they could free up space that could be used for quarantining sick inmates and the like. I continue to get the canned response that now I'm wasting their time. And I wanted to bring this just as from the parents' perspective, that I know there's a lot of families that are beyond angry and aggravated and worried that these men are going to get sick again and possibly die. The ones that are fully vaccinated and just waiting for work furlough, I don't know why they're sitting there waiting for nothing. I wanted to bring this to your attention because I know when they say they're quarantining, all they're doing is putting chairs in the walkway. That's not quarantine. They're not following their own protocol and they have no way to follow it currently. So that's why I'm here. I wanted to be here as a parent to find out what exactly is going on. I know that a guard reported to Waiava COVID positive and they knew it and they forced him to work. They did no contact tracing because they wanted to sweep it under the rug. And that is absolutely unacceptable to me as a parent of an inmate there. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate your comments today. We'll
Mark,
probably
a
have
comment?
more discussions about it as we move on through the agenda.
Comment, Mark.
Go ahead, Ted.
Ms. McFarland, I believe you recently sent us a letter. We got it to the Attorney General a few days ago. Was that you?
Yes, I've sent many letters to Tommy Johnson and they got forwarded to someone. I don't know the person's name, but I think it was the Attorney General possibly. Can you hear me?
Ted's kind of frozen right now. Martha, did you have something to say?
No, I don't have anything to say
Okay.
at this time.
Yeah, Angie, I believe we did receive a letter that we'll be responding to and working with the department to see what kind of answers we can get. But we'll get back with you on that as well. Thank you for your concerns.
Mahalo, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Dan?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you again for the work that you do and for paying attention to these important issues. Something that I wanted to point out from the federal level that's happening right now, the CDC, in partnership with the Department of Justice, has earmarked $700 million to go to states. That's for all 50 states. And that $700 million, I learned a little bit more about the process that would happen here, but that $700 million is for primarily, first and foremost, has to be for testing inside of facilities. But then there's 15 other things that the money can be put towards. And one of the things that it's put towards is safe decarceration. So that this is a real opportunity to be able to fund the types of programs that exist, such as Going Home Hawaii on the Big Island here in Hawaii, in order to allow for opportunities to just decarcerate and get people out of the jails. What we've got a problem with right now is just overpopulation. And there's no way, as you all know, to be able to reach the CDC guideline levels and the bed limits that you all put as part of your charge as the Oversight Commission. And so this is a real opportunity to actually be able to fund a robust public health service. Because really, you know, what I try and do in my work is to try and frame this in terms of a much larger public health point of view. And as we know, just from what's going on around the world, that as long as COVID exists in certain places, we are still going to have outbreaks. And that is especially true here in Hawaii, that if we keep on allowing COVID to attack the people who are incarcerated, we will see time and time again outbreaks there. Those outbreaks will spill out into the community, and we will constantly be fighting this losing battle. So this is a real great time to be able to try and leverage those dollars in order to try and create a robust decarceration system here so that we don't have to have people who are sitting in jail awaiting trial while the normal rules that allow for a speedy trial are suspended, so that people are just waiting for things to happen there. So I would encourage the Oversight Commission to be able to talk to some legislators. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a special session so that the legislature can actually accept this money from the federal government. And I presume that during that process, there's going to be a lot of earmarking and a lot of places where this money is going to be directed to. And I just would encourage you all to make sure that that money actually goes into the sorts of things that we know work, which is decarceration, and the sorts of organizations that have been doing really great work in order to help folks with reentry. One other thing I wanted to highlight, this last week in West Hawaii Today, there was an article that was featuring the fact that cash bail is being set at the way the article was framed, it was just saying that cash bail is being set too low and too many people are being let out of jail. And I think that this shows a real problem with the way that we even think about cash bail. Cash bail isn't supposed to be something that is intended to hold people in jail indefinitely. The only reason that cash bail exists is to just get people to show up to their hearings on the other side of this. It's not supposed to be a punishment. It's not supposed to be a tool in order to lock up people who are too poor to be released. The prosecutor here on the island said that he thinks it's a major problem that people are being released. And obviously this goes against, not only the United States Constitution, but also the Hawaii Constitution. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to all try and do a little bit of education to the public at large, even to our elected leaders, in order to help them see that cash bail is not a punishment in itself. All it is supposed to be collateral so that people will show up to their hearing. And there's a lot of other ways to do this that a lot of other places have shown across the country. And they, really flight risk from Hawaii, is pretty low because people aren't going to be necessarily canoeing over to California to escape a misdemeanor charge. And so that this is really a misconception on what cash bail is and what it's supposed to be as well. So those are my two comments. Happy to answer any questions about that. Mahalo.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate all that time. I sent you some private texts. Maybe we'll get together later and ask you a little bit more questions. Yeah, but thank you for that information. Very valuable on that money, potential federal funding. Aloha Mahia, you can be next, Jamie?
Yeah. Mahalo nui, aloha kako, aloha to the commissioners. I just first wanted to acknowledge Angie and just let her know that I was not too long ago exactly where you are as a mom. My son is out now. He finished his parole. He's transitioning back to our ohana. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie Maheleni Miller, and I'm the founder and the president of Ekolumea Nui, a nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming and supporting the transformation of the criminal justice system here in Hawaii. Ekolumea Nui is also one of 40 organizations that makes up the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander 3R team, which is the COVID-19 response team for Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders here recognized in the state. And we're also connected nationally to other similar initiatives. And what I wanted to share today is that on behalf of the NHPI, we're led by Dr. Keawe Koholokula, Dr. Sherry Daniels, Josie Howard, Telea Itao. So I think you folks are familiar with these folks. And many of the PSAs that we see on television here on the radio station, on social media, is actually driven by this team, by all of us. And we are doing advocacy. We have different committees, and we would like to invite the commission to be at the table with us. It's an open invitation, and we have a website that you folks could go and look at. I can drop it in the chat. And it really is open to many. And right now we're concerned about this Pa'ahau community and the outbreaks, and we have some solutions. We have something to bring to the table as far as through education and also increasing vaccinations, and even just being a partner with DPS so that we can right now get in control of these numbers. And so, and also we have some ideas around Saguaro, because like I said, we're connected nationally to other community health organizations, other Native populations that are doing the same on the continent. And so quickly, that's my my testimony, my sharing with you folks today. Again, I'll drop the website in the chat, and maybe I could do some follow up with any one of you here. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jamie. Thank you for your work with Kolomea Nui, for being part of this discussion today. Do I have any more hands up? Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mark, and commissioners. I don't understand why the Department of Public Safety is opposed to having the Oversight Commission as the primary body that would look into protecting inmates from the COVID. I think this is exactly what Act 179 was created to ensure happens. You are supposed to be providing the oversight, not 5 people, 2 selected from the state, I guess, 2 from the plaintiffs, and then they pick a third. That process is going to take a long time while people are suffering and coming down with this disease. I can't imagine where we're going to find 4 people who are more qualified than the 5 people who are on this group, right? Or 5 people more qualified than the 5 of you, which includes a director and a former deputy director for administration, along with 2 judges. And somebody like yourself, Mark, who's been with the system for 30 years. So where are we going to find the people with the wisdom and the knowledge to protect the inmates if we don't have them right here? If they can do a better job because they're more qualified than the 5 of you, then fine, bring those people in. But if they can't, I would say the Department of Public Safety has a lot of explaining to do as to why they are objecting and opposing the Oversight Commission from becoming involved in this, the most critical issue facing the Department of Public Safety at the present time. An issue, by the way, which is not going to go away for a very long time, because we know that Hawaii's vaccination rate is extremely low. It's not bad compared to the rest of the country, but we're still not, I think, around 60%. And even 70% is probably no longer a valid number for community immunity with regard to this new strain of the virus. We're probably going to need 80 to 90% vaccination in order to be safe. We're not going to have that in the next year or 2 years, I don't think. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that prisoners are going to be exposed, not only today, but for a very long time. And I am extremely upset about the idea that 5 people who somebody seems to think is more qualified than you are going to be coming in here and saying how we're going to protect our inmates. This is not for amateurs. This is a really serious matter, and I think you folks ought to be deeply involved in it, and not 5 people who are picked willy-nilly. I don't know where we're going to get them from, but I just think this is very disturbing, and I think the department owes everybody here and the community a clear explanation as to why they object to the 5 of you becoming the people responsible for protecting the inmates, when there is a law that says you are the ones who are supposed to protect the inmates. Thank you.
I want to add to that I'm not sure it's just PSD. Is it possibly the Attorney General's also that's objecting?
And I wonder that too, Martha. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate those thoughts. Anyone else before we move on?
I saw a cat.
Go ahead, Kat.
Aloha. Thank you for this opportunity. I surely hope that Eric was speaking about Homer Venters, the doctor who was the head of corrections in New York City. He is an expert, nationally recognized. He actually has such compassion for people. That is what we need. We need somebody who has a bigger picture, who actually cares about the inmates. I received a communication yesterday from Saguaro, which is still in lockdown. People are still sick. and there is no medical care going on. And this is from a parent who was really upset. So I appreciate Mrs. McFarland and Jamie, because they are talking about lived experiences. These are people they love. So please, let's realize that every person comes from a family that loves them. So we need to take care of the people inside. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Can I just add something to what Kat just said and also what Bob said?
Go ahead, Martha.
Oh, okay. Thank you. You know, it's not just the commissioners. We have many people who are a member of this group, being Kat and Bob, two primary ones that have for years advocated for the inmate population. And they should also be considered to be part of this group, not just those who are sitting on the commission. We all ignore this wonderful resource we have out there. I wouldn't say the commissioners ignore it, but the state ignore them. And it's very disheartening. That's my comment.
Mark, I have, Matt, yeah, jump in, Mark, briefly.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think it's really good to get fresh eyes, new eyes, no hila. Don't be shy. A couple of my friends are aboard. Sergio Alcovilla, he's a housing attorney. Ashley Loa of Faith Action Community Equity, John Wytek. And so I appreciate those fresh eyes. And if nothing else, they're going to hold me accountable. So you don't have to talk, but if you talk, say what you got to say. Also, I had Angie, Kevin Dayton wants you to call him. I don't know how to do that. Look in the chat. So part of what we do here is do a connection. Can you hear me, Angie? Give me the thumbs up. Okay, Angie. All right.
Okay.
So call Kevin.
We'll move on now. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. We'll have another time at the end of the meeting to discuss more or share again. But I'd like to move on the agenda at this time. It's 9:35. We're going to move to the status of the funding and the staff position. I'm going to ask Martha to help out, and Lisa's back from her briefing. So Martha, you want to begin?
Yes, we were informed by the Attorney General's to get the money, the Attorney General office, that to get the money, we had to develop position descriptions. And I was tasked with doing that. Unfortunately, I had a delay due to a personal crisis, but I did complete them about two weeks ago. And so I believe at this time, the request to release the funds should be in process. We can start the recruitment process now because you don't have to have the funds in hand to recruit. You just put in the advertisement that is pending release of funds. But what we also need, whoever has their phone on, please turn it off. We can't hear with the background noise. Very distracting. We could do a very small contract to have someone actually do the advertising for this, because I do not know how to get to all those list servers that would help us spread the word, not only locally, but nationally, that we're looking to fill these positions. So that's one thing that I want to consider. Again, what was passed by the legislature was $330,000, and the positions would take up a large chunk of that, but because we have delay in hiring, we still have funds available that we could consider going into a contract with someone to assist us in doing the best job as an oversight commission, which may require some changes to the legislation. I realize now we cannot do that by sole source. That has been turned down, so we would have to advertise for that also. Lisa, if you're back, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm back. No, I don't have anything more to add. We are working on those paperwork to get the funds from BNF. We do have the position descriptions.
Office did finalize the position. Your personnel office did finalize the positions, so that
Yes.
I don't believe there's any more work to do on those.
No. It's all the paperwork to get the funds from BNF now.
Okay.
Okay, so the big, Martha, real quick, so everybody understands that the request for the Budget and Finance to release the funding that the legislature has recently awarded us in this last session is in process right now. So we have
Yes.
high hopes that that will be here within the next month. Two is, Lisa, what do we need to do to begin that recruitment process?
Well, it depends. Do you want to, I think Martha said she wanted to hire somebody to do this?
I was just suggesting that we need
Yeah.
assistance in the recruitment, and
No.
I'm not talking, last time it was only posted on the AG website. That is insufficient. It needs to be posted many more areas. I mean, people advertise for state jobs on Craigslist, on other list servers. I don't know all those list servers. I know one person I want to forward the recruitment to is to Michelle Deitch, to assist us in getting the word out, and I'm sure she'll be willing to do that. But that's what I need assistance with. How do we reach a broader audience than just posting on the AG's website?
I'll have to talk with HR, the AG HR, on whether or not we can, if we can just do that, or if we need to do something else to get that going. I can
Okay,
talk
but
to them and message you
what-
later.
Lisa, once we, for example, if I say, let's begin the recruitment, that's just something you can do at your end, right? As far as, what we did before?
Yes, but,
Yep.
but Martha's talking about going further, expanding the reach further beyond just posting on the state websites. And so I think I would have to talk with HR. I'm not an expert on that. I have to talk to HR whether or not we can just do that, whether they can just start posting everywhere, or if this is something the commission can do on its own and just choose to post recruitment ad on wherever it chooses to do.
The state can do that, Lisa. If you recall, in the past, before everything was on the computers, we had to advertise in all the newspapers statewide. I mean, we were required to do that. Since everything's been put on the internet, the state does not do that so much anymore, but they still listen to it. But again, I have seen state positions on Craigslist, so I know it is possible. I just need assistance.
So,
Okay,
Lisa, I'll be contacting you because no matter what, we want to start the process.
okay,
I don't want to wait for funding. I don't want to wait for anything else. We want to start that process. I'll contact you on the phone later today, and we'll begin some steps in place so that at least the people here, the commissioners, know that the process is going to begin.
Mike here. I totally agree. We've been more than patient, and there's a perception we've been not intentionally but slow walked, and we need to be a sprint, because these prisoners and staff are at risk. They're in a petri dish of severe hurt. So I agree. We had to fast walk it, sprint it, not slow walk it.
Thank you, Mike. I'll be contacting you, Lisa.
okay.
Ron, anything to add?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item. The update on the COVID-19 infections and deaths at the Department of Public Safety facilities in Saguaro in Arizona, and an update on COVID-19 vaccinations. Good morning, Max.
Hey, good morning, Mark. Morning, commissioners. This is the current status with the COVID active positive cases within the facilities. Let me start with Saguaro. We have 5 inmates there that are active positive. They are in isolation, and the facility, Saguaro lifted their lockdown this morning, so they're no longer in lockdown. On the facilities here in Hawaii, we have 4 out of the 8 that we're dealing with active positives. So at KCCC, 62, MCCC, 63, OCCC, 31, and Halava Correctional Facility, 23. We have no active inmate cases at Kulani, Women's, and Waiaba at this time. And HCCC, who recently had an outbreak, is currently clear. On the staff side, we have 6 out of the 8 state facilities that have active positive staff members. So this kind of shows the community spread that's going on out there. So we're dealing with 2 currently at HCCC, 2 at Kauai, 1 on Maui, 11 at OCCC, 1 at Halava, and 2 at Women's. We have 2 staff members in administrative, that's out of TSD, the recruit class, we're also dealing positives. So we have a total of 21 staff that are positive within the department. Some of the things that are happening. Also, I just wanted to report, we have 2 inmates that are hospitalized right now. Both inmates are from Halava. Currently, under the governor's proclamation, there's the so-called vaccine mandate that goes into effect. So we have done our best to determine how many people are vaccinated within the department. Mandatory testing goes into play next week for us, for those that are not fully vaccinated. As far as the inmates, we have no mandate at this time to vaccinate or even, to test them. It's still on a voluntary basis. We do offer vaccines on a regular basis, for the inmates. We're also bringing vaccine pods. We brought vaccine pods back to the facilities, to Queens Medical Center. I guess I would be open to any questions you may have. We are in the lawsuit, as Eric Seitz had pointed out. Kind of prohibited from speaking too much, but all I can say is that, the decisions that the department has made is not independent of the Attorney General's office. We've been under, close contact with the Attorney General's office, and we've been, accepting their advice in many situations. In fact, in all situations moving forward in this lawsuit. As far as the commission being part of this audit process, the commission was brought up, but we weren't sure if the commission was capable of doing the audit, the 5-member commission. So it was never brought to the commission's attention. But if the commissioners feel that this is something that you folks want to take on, this can also be brought up. Currently, as Eric had pointed out, we're looking at the model that was used in Connecticut, where 5 members were used. And I guess a decision will be made today at their hearing with the magistrate. Mark, do you have any questions for me?
I'm going to ask the other commissioners before I say mine. Ted?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, Max. You mentioned you had some positives among your trainees.
Right.
Are new recruits required to be vaccinated?
Recently on our notice, when we issued the notice for hiring, it's a requirement, but these were hired prior to the notice being issued. So these 2 were not vaccinated, and they did come down with the virus. So all recruits, all applications that we will be receiving currently will be, the vaccination requirement will be part of it.
Okay, thank you. On Kauai, what are just your numbers again on Kauai currently positive?
Kauai is 62 active.
And what's your count there?
Count there is 128.
Wow, almost half.
Yeah. The crowded conditions and the close space proximity does not help.
Yeah. Now, how is all this affecting your staffing among the facilities?
It's affecting our staffing because one, before the pandemic, we were really short. Before I came on, a lot of facilities were working long overtime hours because they were just short staffed. We staff, some of them, have not shown up for work. We were forced to shut down certain posts. And, we're working to make sure that, we do our best with what we have at this point.
How does it affect your ability to carry out your pandemic plan?
We are implementing our pandemic plan. I think we're, contrary to what was previously stated, given the circumstances that we're in, I think, the pandemic plan is being implemented.
And regardless of your staff shortage, you're able to implement your plan, you believe?
Yeah, we're quarantining, we're separating, we're isolating based on test results that we have.
Is among the staff that are testing positive, is it among what kind of staff are we talking about? Are we correctional officers or other staff also testing positive?
Mainly it's correctional officers.
Okay.
And we have also cooks that have tested positive also.
Oh. Okay, that's it for now, Mark.
Martha,
Nothing at this time.
Judgetown,
No. Thank you, Max.
All right.
Judge Ibarra.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Max. I know it's we continue to be in the midst of the overall state pandemic, as well as what's happening in the system right now. I'm wondering if some of the things that we've heard with the families that presented a testimony and organizations about how can the department create a better line of communication with these families who are in distress, with their members who are in the facilities, and how best can we open up the communications so that we can balance information from public safety versus the information coming from your staff as well as the offender population. I think it's important that we make an effort to try and ease the tensions and the stress that's going on in the community in regards to the care of the men and women who are incarcerated at this time. And then, I think about times of war, when people want to know what's happening, I believe it's the Red Cross that provides information. They're recognized as somebody that can go into places and provide information to ease family tensions and care about what's going on with people in those areas. And I'm just sharing that to wonder if you can utilize your faith-based volunteers or something that can help provide better communications with the families of our incarcerated populations, so that we can ease and possibly create some kind of peace for them as we all continue to go through the pandemic. Everything is heightened right now, emotions, passion, and whatnot, because of what's happening in the state, and it just multiplies when you talk about the correctional facilities. So this is really just me saying to you, how can we create that? How can PSD create a better communication effort, utilizing some of your volunteer organizations that may have already been banned from coming into the facilities, but have the know-how to talk to families. Yeah.
Mark, as always, any recommendations you folks may have, I'm willing to take a look at it as far as getting communication out there. I mean, we put out stuff every day.
Yes.
But any recommendations you folks may have, please let me know.
I think the public announcements that you are making, the emails that I'm getting, that I'm forwarding to the commissioners, I think that's all great information. We appreciate it. It's just the personal touch that I'm talking about, you know, so that they feel that somebody's listening. And so, yeah, Max, we'll come up with some solutions. I'll talk to some community people and let's see, we'll come back and bring it to your attention again, perhaps in a letter.
Okay, great.
Martha?
Thank you.
I'd like to bring up one of our participants, Charlotte Manuel, is asking, is there any change in the protocols for contacting family when an inmate ends up in the ER with COVID? Are you informing the families?
In the ER?
Yeah.
No-
Transported to the hospital.
no, if it's a hospital administration, I believe they're trying to reach out to notify the people, notify family.
And do you mean if they're admitted to the hospital? Versus
Admitted to the hospital, not ER.
Not ER.
Yeah,
Okay.
hospital admissions.
And then another question is, of the staff that have come down with COVID, how well staffed are we with the medical staff? Are we missing many people in the medical staff as a result?
We have vacancies. We also have medical staff that are coming down with COVID also.
Do you know what your staffing level is? What % is staffed right now in medical?
I don't have that information. I know we have vacancies. We're using contract nurses a lot at this point. We're trying to provide 24/7 operations at some of the smaller facilities that are experiencing COVID that, you know, was basically running day operations only. So, you know, these are challenges that we're trying to provide to the facilities at this time.
And again, ongoing challenges even pre-COVID.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark, well, one more question I'm looking at in the chat room. The understanding is that the staffing situation is getting pretty bad at OCCC. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's the shortage is high. As I said, you know, we have vacancies. We have several hundred vacancies, you know, as far as correctional officers. Some of the other facilities are more challenged than OCCC at this point. You know, we have mandates that have come into play. I'm not sure how that's going to play out on Monday. It may make staffing a little bit more challenging. But you know, I don't have exact numbers for you right now, Ted, but yes, we do have staff challenges at all our facilities right now.
See, I know you mentioned that you're trying to get a count on staff vaccinations in preparation for the new procedures. But do you have any sense in terms of percentages as to how much, what portion of the staff have been vaccinated?
I think just overall public safety, not just correctional officers. From the numbers that we've gotten so far, I think it's 80% plus is the best estimate I have at this time that are vaccinated.
That includes admin staff and
right,
staff who don't work in the, okay.
Total population in public safety.
Okay, yeah,
Mark?
the key is facility, the staff that work in contact with the inmates, your correctional officers, your healthcare, your food service, etc.
Right.
Your maintenance, but do you have any sense among that staff what the proportion might be?
We have not broken that down yet at this point.
Okay.
We're still trying to get a general tally and get the information out regarding the mandatory testing, which will be required on Monday.
Mark?
Yes, Judge.
Max, are there people in Halava who are not convicted felons? Are they there on bail or supervised release or something other? Because one of our viewers, Alice, just wrote in that somebody just bailed out of Halava. You can't bail out of Halava, or can you now?
We've had, I know Alice. Hi, Alice. We have some inmates that are pretrial at Halava, and that's basically for security reasons.
Okay, and we got to get I'm not going to be as critical of you as I am of my fellow judges sometimes. The public defender needs to get on the ball here a little bit, I think. Thank you, though. And thank
All
you,
right.
Alice, for the question.
Thank you, Max. If possible, in our next 2 agenda items, we may be throwing some questions at you if you can hang on for a little bit.
Sure, I'll be here.
Commissioners, as the meeting has progressed to this point, I think it's interesting to note that a lot of the information that Eric Seitz had given us is meaningful to what we want to do. And in regards to what Max had just presented in terms of what's happening in the system, I really want to try and take a look at what the federal government is doing right now and to find out, where's our niche in that. I appreciate Bob for what you had to say, what Bob Merce had to say. So as commissioners, this may be an opportunity for us to take a look at what the federal government is requesting. And then so that we can come up with suggestions to give Max, so maybe Max can ask the AGs, maybe we can work together with PSD, the commission in trying to do what the federal court is asking. What, any thoughts on that?
Mark?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, so I was going to say something, but I didn't think it was appropriate at that time. But regarding the lawsuit, so, under the Act 179, we, the commission, have jurisdiction over investigating complaints. So, my first thought came out that why are we not intervening in the lawsuit at the federal court level? But then there's an issue because, the public safety is a defendant. And we like to be a whatever intervener plaintiff or whatever. But nevertheless, even if the lawsuit does not include the commission, we still can pursue on our own. So I would think, we should be getting information from the lawsuit without being a party. Because if we become a party, who's going to represent us? The AG is representing public safety. The AG is going to have to represent us. And certainly, I've seen situations where they put up this wall where agencies are suing each other within the state government. But so my take is basically, yes, we have jurisdiction to investigate complaints individually, and like we've been doing, receiving complaints from the public. But the biggest thing is we don't have the staff. That's the problem, right? So, that's we always come back, to getting the staff, because if you look at the Act 179, it's broad. We get investigative powers. The overseer, the court oversight coordinator can subpoena and things, the records and stuff like that. But we don't have the staff. So all what we've been doing is basically receiving the complaints, sending it over to public safety for his input, and us responding to the complainant. And certainly that does not help or make things look, as far as this commission, look neutral. I'm always being a former judge, appearance is a big thing. Transparency is a big thing. And certainly, we are not part of public safety. We're not part of the Attorney General's office. We're an independent commission that is charged with overseeing the criminal justice or the correctional system, the state's correctional system. And so I go back again. Yes, I think number one, we can ask information from public safety about what's going on in the lawsuit as part of our jurisdiction. And I can understand Max, he's represented by public safety is represented by the Attorney General, and there's a lawsuit pending. And so now he's on behalf of his, on advice of his lawyers, like any lawyer going to represent their client, going to tell, don't talk too much. So then how are we going to be able to do our job without getting information from public safety? And yet public safety is certainly cautious and say, wait a minute, there's a lawsuit against us. And that's been a big thing on who is a client in government attorneys anyway, whether it's the public or the entity that they quote represent. And so I say yes, even if we're not put in the lawsuit, which I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, it's up for the commission to decide, but all I can say is we still have jurisdiction on our own if we have the staff to inquire on complaints, as we have been doing without staff to a limited capacity, with a limited capacity. So thank you.
Thank you, Judge Ibarra. That's what I needed to hear. I just was speaking off the top of my head, and I appreciate that information and the insight that you just provided. Okay. With that being said, I think we're gonna move on to the next agenda item. Item 4 is and it's 10:01 right now, is the follow-up discussion on the building of the HCSOC. Now, commissioners, two things right now that has been tabled and we're still in discussion. One has to do with a committee to assist a committee to assist public safety that we've talked about in the past. And then second is to really look at a response that, Ted had written concerning some of the HCSOC's forecasts that they came out with in the last meeting. And with that being said, the issue with the committees has been that public safety has told us in the last meetings that they don't want to be in a position to choose who be on the committee, and has thrown that back to us. Yeah, we have said to them that we don't feel that's our responsibility. So that's what that discussion is at this particular point in time. Any of you have any comments at this time on where we should go with this? I'm talking to the commissioners.
Let's start with what Ted drafted. We have a say in this. We have an important say in this. So let's start with what Ted came up with, some good questions concerning the projections that were presented last meeting. Unfortunately, I was not there, so I did not hear the presentation, but I think we should ask Ted to review what he forwarded to us.
You're talking about the
population projections.
Population projections, okay.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but I thought first of all, I thought the projections were not only very interesting. I thought it was the consultant did a good job, but it raised some other questions, and two areas that come to mind immediately is, number one, regarding the number of pre-release beds that is being projected, and I think that's worth further exploration. One of the premises that the consultant used in coming up with this was, he talked about the fact that Laumaka and Waiava don't have enough capacity, but I believe the opposite is true. Waiava has been underutilized actually for quite some time pre-COVID. So I would have some questions about the projected number of pre-release beds, and it was pretty high, especially in view of the fact that the department's plan is to retain Laumaka. Basically, if they can't fill Laumaka, how can they fill the several hundred more pre-release beds? But I don't know if it's because of a lack of qualified candidates or if it's because of the programming process within the department. And by extension, also what's happening on parole, because the proportion of parole violators as opposed to sentenced felons, the proportion of parole violators has increased over time, quite markedly, I thought. So that's one area. And the second area has to do with, I thought I was quite gratified to see that the consultant had projected out possible bed savings if certain reforms were implemented. I think this is off top of my head, so don't hold me on the numbers, but I think my recollection is the consultant projected more than 200 beds that could be saved if the state implemented such reforms as bail reform, for example. And I thought this was very significant. And I wanted to get a cost on that, a projected cost, not only in terms of cost of construction, but long-term cost of operation. And also, this is where I thought the community advisory committee could be very helpful if the consultant based his numbers on proposed reforms that he knew about. Are there other things out there that could be explored to further keep people out of OCCC? And if so, what's the impact of these things, and what kind of money are we saving? Because I think if we start talking about 200 bed savings equals X number of dollars CIP and X number of dollars long-term operating per year, I think we can really get the legislature's attention on the value of these reforms. So that's the essence of what I wrote.
Ted, I want to make a comment. You talked about qualified candidates versus the programming that's available for the inmates.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned that we don't fill the beds because we don't have qualified candidates. And then you said, I think versus the programming that's available to make them qualified. Is that the idea?
That's right.
Yeah. And that's where I think one of the biggest gaps is, that we have not been successful for many, many years. This is not new, in ensuring that we are moving people through the system and making available programs to them.
Yeah, I guess the starkest way to put this is, why do we keep sending people to Arizona when we have empty beds at Kulani and Waiava? Why aren't these people made prepared to go to Kulani and Waiava instead of being sent to Arizona? And why aren't people in Arizona, inmates in Arizona, being better prepared so they can return to places like Kulani and Waiava? I don't know what the cost per day, but if you do the math, it was about $75 a day when I was a director. But at $75 a day times 265, you have, this is real savings, I think, that can be affected.
Yeah.
Was there a question directly for Max on that, Ted?
Well, I think these are the kinds of things that my proposal was, we in fairness to Max, I don't think it's fair to ask Max to respond to something like this at this time in this forum, this particular forum. But if we put it in writing, he could give a more reasoned response to us.
Yeah. Okay. And that's fair, Ted. I appreciate that. And just jumping on what you said, Ted, and Martha said, and Max, just something I want to get off my chest is, it's really when understanding in building the jail, and the report that was presented last meeting touched a little bit on it, is really I'm understanding when you build the jail, we need to truly look at what happens before jail. Yeah, and what happens after jail. And as much effort and time and energy that you place on putting into building a jail should be put in before the jail and after the jail. Yeah, because those two areas are going to influence the population of the jail. Yeah, and if we don't put that effort into it, then we become overcrowded. Yeah, so post jail, is really reentry and the halava, so to speak. Okay, pre-jail is the bail system. Yeah, what are we doing? Who has to go to jail? And we should put a lot of effort, a lot of that money in the planning should be put into thought into the pre-jail and the post-jail effort, so that we can have a better accounting of the number of beds that we truly need. To back up what Ted is already saying, every facility should be looked at that in terms of, even if you look at Halaba, it should be about how are they coming in and how are they leaving. And the effort to manage Halaba should be, how do you manage the population so they don't come, and how do you manage the population so they don't come back? Yeah, all of those efforts should be part of the planning process. Yeah, and that's my thoughts at this time. And you know, when we look at a community or committee, commissioners and Max, some of that effort can be placed upon a committee like that, to look at the pre-facility issues and the reentry and post issues of a jail situation. Yeah, because it's community that's going to drive those two areas with the service, as service providers, as volunteers, as programs. Yeah, so real investment should be placed, not just when you look at that bed, there should be a dollar amount on that bed on where that person is going to stay out of the prison or go, where is he going after? Yeah, rather than just the operational cost. Those are some of my thoughts at this time, Max, and my fellow commissioners. Is really, that's where we're going to start to head toward the transformation that we're required to as mandated by Act 179. Is how do we create that system of transformation, by truly understanding that we're not only focusing on the bed, but what happens to that body that occupies that bed.
Mark, I got two things. I got two things to say. As far as the community advisory group, I believe, and we got Dags on the line, but I think it is a process that, you know, will have to take place when the RFP is developed.
Yeah.
And so if the commission is unable to do this at this time, a community advisory group will be developed for that process. As far as the transitional beds at the proposed new jail, it was my concept that furlough, I mean, if this is a reentry process, reentry should not be limited just to the sentenced felon population, but the misdemeanor population as well, the sentenced misdemeanor population, because we all know that anybody who's locked up for any significant period of time will have adjustments when they go back out into the community. So if we can provide these transitional services for our jail population as well, we might not see them back. So it would reduce population, and hopefully we can get a bigger group being released into the community before their sentence is up. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve with the new jail. Right now, we do not have the space or the facilities to do that at the current OCCC.
I want to make a comment also. Even though Act 179 really focuses on reentry, it has us looking at the correctional or the department as a whole. Intake Service Center is a very major part of our department. The better job we can do to prevent people, it's not just bail, we have supervised release, own recognizances, other things to stop people from going into the jail system. That will, in the long run, reduce the number of people that get sentenced to jail time or even prison time. That's been shown again and again. The more people you can get out and get working and get stabilized in the community prior to their adjudication for their crime, the better they will not be sentenced to incarceration. So we do have to concentrate on that entry point too, not just exiting.
Mark, one comment, and actually, it was recently brought to our attention that Max's predecessor had written a response to the Act 85 recommendations several years ago, and I think this
We're
was
losing
formed.
you again, Ted.
Pardon me?
We're
Am I
losing.
Kind of losing you again, but keep on going.
Okay, but I think a lot of what you're saying, Mark, can be captured in a follow-up to that response that was provided by the prior director. So I think it might be worth our while to ask the department for a follow-up, like a progress report on how they're doing on the Act 85 recommendations. So it's not for now, Max. I think you got a lot on your plate today, but I think this is something that we'll be following up on in the near future.
Max, is relating to the HCR 85 task force recommendation a few years ago that was responded by then public safety director. And we're kind of taking a look at it right now to really guide us, since HCR 85 was an important part of the formation of the commission. And I think Ted had a great idea. If we shot it out to everybody in the last meeting, and I'll send you a copy, just so that we can see what those recommendations were, what was public safety's response at the time. And then hopefully in the email I'll send you, if you can kind of give us from your perspective, since you've only been in office less than 8 months, I believe, and see where we are, so we can begin a process of creating a line of action, for those recommendations as we go into the 22 legislative session. And hopefully as we look at these questions, and anybody who doesn't have that document, if you email you, we can work together and see how we can create some policy changes the next legislative session. Sorry.
How about posting it on the website?
Okay, that's a good one too. That we kind of talked about agendas, items 4 and 5 right there, commissioners. The document that Ted just brought up is really the foundation to begin the process of moving as mandated toward a more rehabilitative and therapeutic model. We can get those questions answered. It'll help us guide us in the few months to come as we prepare for whatever legislation we hope to put in the next in January when the session opens. So that's where we are at this time. I believe, if I correctly heard you, Max, there's going to be, and I remember you telling us that there was going to be an RFP process in January or February, or someone, maybe not you, had mentioned it. But I'm really interested, Ted and Martha and Max, if it's possible, if there could be something in that RFP that talks about what we just talked about. A re-entry effort and the jail, pre-jail populations.
Jail,
we might want to create something for Max to look at to see if it can be added into that RFP. That just was my thoughts after listening to what Max had just said. And if I'm wrong, Max, let me know. But RFP is a process that we're all familiar with, and how that's written out, may help us in the direction that we're going, if things can be added pertaining to what we have just discussed in the last half hour. You think that may be a possibility, Max?
Anything's a possibility, Mark.
Okay, good.
But as I said, I welcome any recommendations that the commission may have.
Okay.
And I think the community advisory group will be part of I'm pretty sure it is part of the RFP process.
Okay. Thanks, Max. Appreciate that. It's a light. It's a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and we just got to work on making it brighter and brighter, commissioners. With that being said, we're at 10:23 right now, everyone. But if I can field any more questions or open any for public comment on that agenda items, now's the time before we close the meeting. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I'll try and be very brief. Number one, with respect to the presentation by Eric, what I would envision is that the Oversight Commission would be in the place of a special master in effect. Therefore, in response to Judge Ibarra's concerns, they would not be on the side of the plaintiff. They would not be on the side of the defendant. They would be on the side of the federal court. They would be independent, and their activities would be overseen by the federal magistrate. They would, obviously, you folks would not do the work. I would not envision that. You folks would be stand in the position of the special master who would hire the people who are going to develop the protections and go into the prisons and make sure the inmates are being safe. That would be a very expensive proposition. It would probably cost hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, which I think is reasonable. I think the federal judge would have to approve of that money and say, here's $1 million or whatever it is to the Oversight Commission. The money is going through you. You hire the people who are going to go in and do the hard work of doing this. So I just want to be clear that I don't see you as being partisan in terms of the plaintiff or defendant side. I see you as being the oversight for the COVID protections, and you would be responsible for basically running it, but you would have to have staff to do the actual work, and that's how I would see that. With regard to the
Wait a minute, Bob, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
If the commission had that role, would we have to do everything in public like we do now? Because if we would, we wouldn't be able to get much done.
That's a good question, Martha. I don't know offhand what the answer is. I guess I would lean towards saying, yeah, maybe you really do. But I wouldn't say you wouldn't get anything done. But I'd have to look into that further. It's a good question, Martha. But you know, what is the alternative? The alternative is what Eric is suggesting, which is 5 people who probably don't know as much about the system as you do, who probably don't know who to hire as well as you would do to get it done. And they would all be acting without any transparency at all, except accountability to the master. So I think something could be worked out to ensure that you could do both be transparent and have the privacy you need. But certainly a good point, Martha. I also, just with regard to the committee, I still think it would make sense if you folks decided who should be on the committee to advise on the new jail. And you know, and I don't think it would be look partisan if Max were to just say, if these are your recommendations, I accept them and we'll put these people on it. I don't think that means he's approving of them or disapproving them. He's simply saying, you've got the recommendations, we respect your ideas, we'll put these people on and see how it works. But I think we need that group now, not when not 4 or 5 months from now, when the RFP comes along. And the RFP process is probably going to have a bunch of people who don't know much about jails. And the whole point of our discussion thus far has been appointing people to this advisory committee who really know something about the jail population and the problems that people are facing. And lastly, I just want to say, well, 2 things. One, I also believe that probably the resistance to having the Oversight Commission involved in tackling this COVID problem comes more from the AG's office than it does from public safety. I just want to go on the record. I believe that's probably the case. I may be wrong, but that's my belief, that the opposition is not so much from public safety, but from oversight, from the AG. But finally, I want to say just one thing. I really appreciate Max saying that we should focus on reentry, not only for the people at Halava, but the people at OCCC who are sentenced misdemeanors. I would say, Max, we need to go one step further. And the concept behind the new jail should be that when somebody comes into the jail, they are assessed mentally and physically to look at the problems they have. And we develop for each of those people, even if they're going to be released on their own recognizance, a reentry plan. And what amounts to the same thing that a hospital does when somebody comes into the ER for a short time and is discharged, you have a discharge plan. So that when somebody is arrested for a minor offense and comes into the jail and is released on their own recognizance, they're not released back to the street. If they came from the street, we have somebody who's going to work with them to get them housing. If they don't have a primary care physician, if we really want to help these people and keep them out of the jail permanently, we need to get their health issues addressed, and we need to get them a primary care physician or specialist to treat the disease that they have, to get them the medication they need, to get shelter for them, to get them in housing, and to get them anger management training, or treatment if that's what they need, to get them into or encourage them at least to get into rehabilitation programs if they've got drug issues early on. But that should be the role of the jail. And that's what we're trying to say in the HCR 85 report, that the jail should not be somewhere where you take people who are arrested and released back into the conditions and with all of the problems that they had. But that's what we're going to do. That's what we're on course to do. And that's why the jail, as presently being conceived, will be a failure and will be nothing more than a new shiny facility with all the same problems as OCCC has. That is the message of the HCR 85 task force. And I really hope that between now and the time that RFP comes out, we rethink what the jail is supposed to be, what its role is in our community, because it needs to be a new role, a different role, not the old role that OCCC has played. The 21st century demands something different, and we need to come up with something different. So I'm sorry for being on my soapbox, but thank you very much for the opportunity to get this off my chest.
Always good thoughts and very informative, Bob. Thank you.
Mark, Alice Kahaliua has been waiting to speak.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Kahaliua.
It's Kahaliua, Alice Kahaliua. My son is Dustin Seneca Padilla. He's one of the plaintiffs in a lawsuit. So I'm gonna watch what I say too. It was never his intention to seek release or financial gain. His concern was that medical attention was not being given. And so one of my major concerns are mental health issues not being addressed, because you can address the substance abuse issue and not address the mental health issue, and relapse is most likely to happen. You have to address both issues. And if you address the mental health issues, the prison population or those incarcerated will seem less insubordinate, and maybe the prisons will run smoother. My son spent majority of his time in the hole. Why? I never got a clear answer, except for classification purposes. Max Otani has answered the phone every time I called. Every time I called, he answered the phone. And I appreciate that. I know that this is just like falling on his lap. And I can just only imagine how overwhelming it is for him. But I know he needs support. And I know that mental health issues needs to be addressed within the prison system. Even if you don't have mental health conditions, put somebody in a hole for 24 hours a day, 23 hours a day, even 20 hours a day, and they develop some kind of mental health issue. My son is schizophrenic. He hears voices. His request was blatantly ignored. And I can imagine how many others' requests are blatantly ignored. I have been given the opportunity, by God's grace, that I get to speak on behalf of him, but there's a lot of people out there. I have many sleepless nights. Just as much sleepless nights as when he was on the streets running amok, using drugs, than him being incarcerated. You know, I was relieved he was incarcerated, Then I had sleepless nights because of the way he's been treated. Inhumane. And it all starts even by calling an inmate. It takes away from their identity. They're people too. They're someone's son, daughter, mother. And he never was given no case management. So I appreciate everything I heard today was good stuff. It was really good stuff. I heard less about HCCC, but I heard a lot of good stuff. If it can be implemented, wonderful. Would be amazing. Because you know what? Change would happen just not just for this generation, but many generations to come. It'll affect many. Max, I believe, has been put in this position for a reason. It's a much greater reason than we all know. We only get 20/20 vision in hindsight, right? But I'd like to speak on behalf of everybody that they get questions about their loved ones and it's unanswered. Why are their privileges taken away? Why are they written up because they're afraid? They have questions about COVID and they're afraid for their own lives. Why are they being written up because of that? If they have simple questions, tell them why. When I used to be a CSM at Walmart and I have to tell a cashier something, no, you can't do that. They want to know why. If I explain why, they go, oh, okay, I get it. You know, then it runs smooth. There's a better relationship. They just have questions. Why are they being written up for it? Answer the questions. People have questions. Answer the questions. Max answered my calls. And I appreciate that. He needs more support. Max Otani needs more support.
Thank you, Alice. I appreciate your heartfelt manao at this time. And we'll continue to work at trying to improve those conditions. Go ahead, Ted.
Mark, yeah, one thing Alice said kind of concerns me. Max, my recollection of the policy on segregation is that nobody goes in segregation unless cleared by the mental health people, and everybody in segregation gets a mental health check on a regular basis. Is the policy still the same? As far as you know?
It's still the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they're seen by the professionals.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mahia?
Although, wow, that breaks my heart, Alice, that you got relief knowing that your son was incarcerated. That just really breaks my heart, that statement, but I can understand where you're coming from. My comment really is just to acknowledge and appreciate what Mr. Otani had shared around reentry, but I also wanted to remind everyone that there is power in community. And when it comes to reentry, my son was denied parole more than 3 times. He was total incarcerated 9.5 years. So he started seeing the parole board at 4.5 years when his minimum was up, and he kept getting denied parole, and he was being sent through our system, go through work furlough, and he wasn't successful 3 times. 3 times he wasn't successful, and we practically begged the parole board to release him to his ohana, who knew him best and could provide the most support. And he was denied every single time, until the last time, when we got an amazing attorney that most all of you know, who isn't on here today, but he got released 6 months before he was gonna max out. He had chosen, when he made 8 years, he said, I'm just gonna max out. I may as well just max out, because nothing is successfully set up for me here. And anyway, she changed his mind. He got released on parole. He came home from Saguaro. He went to Halava, then he went to Waiava for a little while, and then for like a week or so, and then he was released to us during COVID. He found a job right away. We supported him. He lives with us. He's super successful. His parole officer told him after about 2 months of her meeting him and said, I've been doing this job for 20 years. You are the best inmate that I've ever had. You follow everything that I lay before you. You're easy. I don't understand. Like, you know, she would commiserate with him as to why he was incarcerated for so long. And it's because of the environment. We don't set our people up in the right environment. So although I appreciate all the comments around reentry and pre-jail, all of that, we have to understand that our community and our families have power and they should be empowered and part of this transition or discharge plan, because the more of the same is not going to work. So that's just my comment. Mahalo, everyone.
Mahalo, Maya. Dan?
Yeah, so since reentry has come up, there are a few things that I just want to talk about that I do see coming. You know, one of the things that I annoy you all with is sort of the crystal ball moments, looking to see what's coming next. But I just want to point out that yesterday, again, we have this deep structural problem that exists inside of the criminal, at least one deep structural problem that exists inside of the criminal legal system, which is when people are detained and then taken to jail, they lose their Medicaid services. So if they were receiving care management in the community, if they were receiving a psychotropic drug that's on the Medicaid formulary here, once they go into jail, they lose access to all of that. So that means that their conditions get worse and their actual ability to engage with the health system becomes harder and harder through time. There are major changes that are coming to this from a variety of different points of view. And tomorrow I'm actually waking up at 2 a.m. and I'm going to be at a meeting all day with the Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. as requested by them to talk about the opportunities to use Medicaid as an avenue for change inside of the criminal legal system and around reentry. And so this is something that HHS is going to release guidance on in the future. And this is also one of the reasons why I think talking about the jail and not including ideas about what the future of the health system and its engagement with the criminal legal system without an eye towards those changes is going to be a huge mistake, because there's going to be fundamentally different ways in which health services are provided inside of jails and prisons in the future. I can guarantee it. And so HHS is going to release some information about reentry. Hopefully it's going to be encouraging different states to apply for different opportunities for this, for what are called Medicaid waivers in order to allow for Medicaid services at least 30 days before release. I can tell you Utah, Kentucky, California just applied for a 90-day waiver. Massachusetts just yesterday put in a Medicaid waiver to allow for Medicaid services the entire time that someone is incarcerated, which means that the entire time someone is in jail, they have access to all of the services that they would have out in the community. These things are really revolutionary. They're watershed moments in this system. And unfortunately, and I'm saying this with like so much love, Hawaii is about 20 years behind the rest of the country in the way it does things. And I want us to be able to be looking towards the future to see how we could actually be ahead of these things as they're coming, and to try and actually build a rehabilitative system with all of these new federal opportunities, with relying on DHS, with being able to think about Medicaid waivers, thinking about a unitary formulary that makes sure that when people are arrested and taken to jail, they can be maintained on the drugs that work for them, connecting in with the health system to understand, is somebody here because they have a health condition, a mental health condition, or are they here because they did something wrong, or is there ways to divert people away? Our behavioral health managed care provider here, just as another aside, is Beacon. So Beacon is someone that I've worked with at the national level in order to try and have their care managers appear inside of court arraignment proceedings to help people be diverted away at that point in time, to talk about the way that they could be more effectively treated in the community. So I just think it's really incredibly important to be able to have this sort of cross-silo conversation. And I just don't know how it could happen. So I'm just trying to ring the bell to say there's a lot of changes that are coming in the future. I really want us to be able to try and take advantage of all of those opportunities. But unfortunately, if we just keep on doing things business as usual, we're going to continue to be lagging behind the rest of everyone else. And frankly, importing mainland ideas about what it means to be a community, what it means to be Ohana, in destroying really the families here, because let's be honest, the people who have the worst outcomes when it comes to the criminal legal system and our health system are Kanaka Maoli populations. And, you know, that's because we're trying to bring in all of these things that don't work. And what we can do is actually build a system that will work for people here. And the good thing is we'll be light years ahead of the rest of the country as they're doing it. And I think that that's a really great opportunity that we should not miss out on, that's coming in the future.
Thank you, Dan. As always, very insightful. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Alcabila?
I just wanted to thank you, the commissioners, and especially Judge Town, for inviting me today just to learn more about this issue, and just thank the commission for all of its work. My interest was on a personal note. I had a family member who was recently charged with attempted murder, and while he was waiting trial, he had to spend about 3 weeks in jail. And just that experience, I mean, that is traumatic, you know, and just to be able to receive some sort of mental health resources to address that trauma, I think that's something that's still sorely needed. And it's great to see some of the familiar faces here. Another work that I've been involved in is on the expungement side, expunging some of these cases that get dismissed. That's another issue that, you know, we've been trying to help him with, because, I mean, if he was wrongfully charged, now that thing is, you know, on his record, and that's something that he has to live with while he's, you know, looking for jobs. So I think those are other things that I know it's part of the bigger conversation to the picture, but just some things to be aware of, you know, if you want to look at this holistically. Again, I just want to thank you for your work and for Judge Town for inviting me. As a disclaimer, I do want to say that, you know, I am a candidate for office, but I do hope I'll be able to still join in the future some of these meetings. So thank you very much again.
Thank you for participating, and good luck to you. Thank you for your words. It's about 10:45 right now. Lisa, you got a date for next week? Next meeting? Sorry. September 16th
Yes, that's the third Thursday in,
in September at
Yes.
9:00 a.m.
yes.
I want to, before we close out and I ask the commissioners for final words, I want to apologize for the lateness of the Zoom announcement for the meeting. I know the agenda came out last week, Thursday or Friday. I have been out of state for the past couple weeks. And I just returned yesterday and my computer systems were down. And I wasn't able to resolve them till 8 o'clock this morning. So my apologies for the late announcement of the meeting, or the link, that is. It won't happen again. Yeah. So with that being said, there's a lot of things that were talked about today. And, you know, I guess I took the break so I could clear my mind, because there's a lot of things to do in the next 4 or 5 months. Yeah, before we end the year. And took the break so I could clear my mind so that we can begin knowing that we're going to start preparing for the legislative session. And a lot of things are going to be get going by the time we meet again in September. A lot of what we have talked about today. And so I just want everybody to, you know, gear up for some emails and some phone calls that's going to be happening before our next meeting. You know, we've been talking bits and pieces here and there about the issues that are out there. Families have come and shared with us their personal stories. All of that is meaningful to us, to the commission, to myself. Yeah. The difficult part at this point is really trying to create a line or a path for us to make the changes occur. Yeah. We want to be strategic and we want to be actionable in a strategic manner so that change can happen. So I think we're almost at that point now with all the discussions that we've been having to set that plan in motion by the next September meeting. Yeah, I'm actually putting myself out there to make sure that that happens. So with that being said, Martha, any last words?
Just that one of our participants, DD Maria, has asked that we add to our next agenda that we invite the PSD medical director and someone from DOH to help us further understand what's being done to protect our inmates from both those agencies. So if we could add that to the agenda and also give Max the notice that this request is being put in.
Will do, Martha. Ted,
No, I'm good to go.
Judge Town,
Well done, well said. Thank you, Chair and all.
Judge Ibarra,
Yes, just to Lisa again, I guess a reminder to invite the chief judges of each circuit, send them an agenda and the time so that they can hear about the discussion and the pretrial release and the concerns raised, at least so they can have an idea and maybe go back to their judges and provide them information. Thanks.
Okay.
Lisa, anything?
No.
Okay. All right, everyone. I'm gonna just say one last word. Stay safe out there. Wear your mask, sanitize your hands, remember your social distancing, take care of your elders, take care of yourselves and your family. Until we meet again, aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.